next couple days. To celebrate the second vaccination.
Okay, I can hear you guys now. You're on TV.
Rob, we just got the knock.
Okay, great. Well, welcome to the March 10th, 2021 meeting of the Moscow Planning and Zoning Commission. Welcome, everybody. We've got Nels, Mike, and Scott in chambers. Joel, Wendy, Rich, and I are joining by Zoom, and I believe Victoria is on the phone.
Correct.
So, and Maureen, welcome. Maureen is also joining us by Zoom. So, with that, we'll start the meeting. The first item is approval of the February 24th minutes. Do we have any additions, deletions, corrections? If not, would somebody like to make a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Okay, Wendy moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Rich seconds. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Minutes are approved. The next item is the public comment period, and I can't see if there's anybody in chambers. Do we have anybody that would like to speak on issues that are not before the commission this evening or before city council?
There's nobody in the chambers, Rob.
Nobody in chambers. Okay, so we'll move to item 3 then. This is our public hearing. This is a legislative hearing providing for the amendment of Moscow City Code Title 4, Chapter 6, providing for the amendment of the outdoor lighting code to allow the lighting of public art displays. And Mike, I believe you'll be up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, commission members. Share the screen. We all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is a public hearing. This is in regards to the amendment to the lighting ordinance that we currently have for public art. So just a little bit of background. This initially started with the recent installation of the Homecoming, which is the newest public art freestanding installation at the Couplet, C and Main Street. It's the newest addition to the city's public art collection. It was designed, fabricated, and installed by artists that were selected through the process, Jennifer Corio and Dave Fry of Vancouver, Washington. The scope included the creation of lighting as part of the installation, and the artist recommended that 3 fixtures be installed at ground level, each of those focused on curved panels mounted above. And this was the Homecoming installation that was created and installed earlier in 2020. And this was the public art lighting plan that was submitted as well. You can see like 3 well-type fixtures recessed in the ground below, shining up at each of the 3 panels. So with the installation of the recent public art project, we had just had some discussions internally amongst staff, mainly with the arts department, about lighting public art within the city. Majority of lighting is required to be full cutoff, with uplighting only permitted in certain circumstances within our existing code. And then the arts department ended up requesting that the Planning and Zoning Commission take a look at our current lighting ordinance to see if there was an option for providing an exemption for the full cutoff requirement just for public art. And this would benefit several other pieces throughout the city. We have a handful of these. This is on the north end of town at Fire Station 3. And then we've got the Helioterra project that was installed at the Wren Welcome Garden at the south couplet of town. So taking a look at our current ordinance, generally it's required to be full cutoff, designed, installed, and maintained in order to prevent light trespass onto adjacent properties of the street. Looking in the residential zoning districts, requires full cutoff, but it does have some exceptions. 400 lumen fixtures or less, as long as they're partially shielded or permitted. 2,000 lumen or less wall-mounted fixtures, if they're below an eave, are permitted. And then angled floodlights not more than 25 degrees vertical are permitted as well. And then just partially shielded floodlight on a timer. And then the last is just on a motion sensor, not required to be shielded at all. So residential, we have a lot more leniency in residential as far as the commercial goes. Taking a look at non-residential zoning districts, really has to be full cutoff. It does have some exceptions. Signs are included within that, so signs are permitted to be internally or externally illuminated, typically internally only in commercial areas. Externally, typically we have the option in commercial areas, but residential zoning districts, you're required to have those be externally lit. There's no internal illumination allowed. And they're allowed, but the source of illumination can't be visible from the adjoining street or the property. And then we have flagpole uplighting, which is exempt as well for flags for government entities. And then it has setback distance of 20 feet from the property line. And then there's a maximum lumen, 13,000 for non-residential and 8,000 for residential zoning districts. And then we exempt lighting of communication towers that's required by law or regulation other than their code. And then we also have an exemption for lighting of public spaces and public rights-of-way within central business, as well as on the University of Idaho campus. As long as the outdoor lighting is partially shielded, it does not trespass on residential properties. So the commission ended up conducting, as you recall, the special meeting happened on January 11th of this year. And they reviewed different lighting options, and that was at the Helioterra Public Art installation, and then ended up directing staff to prepare an ordinance amending the lighting code to allow uplighting for public art. That was modeled off of really a hybrid of the flagpole requirements and the sign regulations, bringing in the kind of the blocking or the shielding of the source of the lighting from the street or other property. So if you recall, these were a couple pictures when we visited the Helioterra site and took a look at a couple different fixture options with varying lumen levels. And then from that, we brought back at that following Planning and Zoning Commission meeting and discussed the language to be inserted within the ordinance. So we'd be adding a section for exemptions right after the flagpole exemption for public art lighting. States that lighting used for the illumination of government-owned freestanding public art displays so long as the source of illumination is not visible from any adjoining street or property, and then bringing in the maximum lumen output doesn't exceed 13,000 lumens non-residential and 8,000 in residential zoning districts. So rather small amendment, just inserting a paragraph within the lighting ordinance. So with that, staff's recommendation is that the commission conduct the public hearing and upon consideration of testimony received, recommend approval of the proposed ordinance to City Council. And we did receive public comment on this from Ms. Nancy Cheney, and that's been distributed to the commission, and certainly be able to try to answer any questions that you might have.
So before we open the public hearing, commissioners, anybody have questions for Mike? Okay, hearing none, we will open the public hearing.
I think this will be a slam
We
dunk.
would like to hear from anybody that's in support of the amendment or have general comments. And I believe, Mike, did I hear that there's nobody out in chambers?
Correct, Mr. Chair. There's still nobody here.
Okay, so we would move then to comments in opposition, and I would like to acknowledge that we received 2 communiques from Nancy Cheney. If possible, Mike, I'd like to make sure that that's a part of the record as we move forward. I'm not quite sure what the protocol is for making sure that communications like that, but I think it would be appropriate. So with that, I will close the public hearing and open it to issues, questions, or comments from the commission. Okay, Joe?
I plan on ultimately voting in support of the proposal. However, I do have some of the same misgivings that Nancy had and that she expressed, especially the misgiving about whether or not we're talking about a slippery slope. That is, if we allow them for public art, do we have the guts to deny them to non-public art? In Mike's introduction to it, he said that the reason for our full cutoff requirement is to avoid light trespass on other properties. The reason for the full cutoffs is also to avoid light pollution into the sky, a part of dark sky efforts. The trying to preserve some ability to actually see the stars at night in the face of lots of light pollution. And I'm certainly sympathetic with that. I guess I was convinced at the workshop that we held outside a month ago that at relatively low wattage and with proper aiming, that the lights that we saw demonstrated, at least, were not producing a significant problem. And so long as that's what we're talking about in the future, I guess I'm willing to support it, because I definitely am supportive of public art. So, as I say, I have mixed feelings, but for the moment, I guess I'm willing to support the change.
Thanks, Joel. Anybody else? Comments from any of the other commissioners? Mike, one question. I presume that the amendment was reviewed by city attorney?
It was, correct.
Okay. So, and Joel, I sure appreciate your comment, and Nancy's as well, with respect to the slippery slope and whether or not, and part of my reason for asking the question to Mike about that council has, or the city attorney has reviewed, is that I would hope that any concerns about that sort of issue would at least have been considered in the amendment. So, okay, so anybody else have any concerns, comments? Well, with that, I certainly am in favor of moving forward with this amendment. So I would like to entertain a motion to approve the amendment. Anybody?
This is
Rich,
Victoria.
okay.
I will make a motion to approve the proposed ordinance to City Council with no conditions.
Okay, and Rich to second. Okay, so Victoria has moved to approve the amendment. Rich is seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And abstentions? Okay, so the amendment is passed. And one other brief comment. I want to thank Scott again for his efforts and setting up the demonstration. It was really helpful and informative for us. So Scott, thank you again for doing that.
You bet.
So
Thank you.
with that, we'll move on to item 4, which is a final review of the draft sign code. Mike, I think you're up again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you recall last time, I believe I reported at the end of the meeting that I gave a presentation to the Latah County Board of Realtors on February 18th of this year, and just presented the proposed changes mainly to real estate signs. As you recall, we were calling those temporary signs from here on out with the proposed ordinance, and those would also include political signs and just the temporary yard signs that you have some type of ideological message that those could show up in your yard year-round. And so there was some positive input from the Board of Realtors, and they seemed to not have any issue with what we were proposing there. And that was kind of our final step prior to kind of pushing this on to a public hearing. And so don't have a presentation for you tonight, but I'd certainly be happy to pull that up. And if any of the commissioners have any other questions about, they want to go over again about what we're proposing, certainly be able to talk to those. The main changes are just converting portions of the code from narrative to that table format, and then bringing it into compliance with Reed versus the Town of Gilbert for mainly the temporary signs within the sign code. But certainly could have a further discussion if we saw fit, or this is in really the final stages of our legal department reviewing it. And as soon as they give us the okay, I was planning on scheduling it for a public hearing whenever that occurs.
Okay, any questions for Mike before we talk about sending that forward? Mike, I'm sorry, Wendy, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just a comment that I really think that the chart, the graph or the chart is a great tool for people. I mean, we've done that in other parts of the zoning code, et cetera, as we've updated it. And I think this is just really succinct, and you can find the information quickly. So I think it works really well.
I sure agree with that, and I think kudos to Mike for moving that kind of change forward in these as we have opportunities to amend any of the codes. We take the opportunity to get this table format. So I really appreciate that. I did have one question, and it partly is trying to remind myself of a decision that we made. In section I, we say a maximum of 3 signs are permitted per lot except as provided within the section C below. I'm trying to recall why it was that we decided 3 signs. Was there, Mike, do you remember the discussion about that?
Well, I think the commission debated this quite a bit, and I think that was mainly just the common number or the maximum number that you saw at any one given time around town was, about 3 signs that were displayed year round. And I think we initially started out with 1 or 2, and that was increased to 3 with the latest draft. And it was mainly just trying to control some amount of clutter, mainly within these residential areas where, somebody has eight temporary signs displayed year round, then, at what point does that become more of a visual nuisance to, other people within that same neighborhood? So I think it was arrived by the commission of just what the commission felt comfortable with as far as just the number of signs per residential lot.
Okay, that makes sense. I recall that conversation now. So I think we were uncomfortable with only 1 or 2, but thought 3 was a rational number. So, okay.
So Rob,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Victoria.
Yeah, I remember this conversation very well, and we did talk about anywhere from 2 to 3 to 4, and we came to 3 to not be too restrictive. They're usually small, like Black Lives Matters, that kind of thing, and they tend to be, as Wendy says, closer to the house in the flower beds or whatever. So 3 was a good compromise to not be too restrictive, but not get cluttered.
Okay, great, thank you. So Mike, I don't suppose you're in need of a motion on this, just direction from us to move forward, get it ready for public hearing?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Anybody else have questions for Mike on that particular issue? That's great. Nice work with that, Mike. We'll look forward to that coming back to the commission. So the next item, reports. Joel, as I recall, you said last time that the Transportation Commission was meeting the day after.
Yeah, the Transportation Commission is meeting at 4 o'clock tomorrow. And unfortunately, I've been derelict in looking up the agenda, and given that I'm using my pad for the Zoom meeting, I can't look the agenda up on my pad. So the meeting is at 4 o'clock tomorrow.
Well, that'll almost guarantee that our next commission meeting will have a report from you then. That's
okay. Sounds
that's
good.
Great. So, Mike, any announcements?
Nothing from staff, nope.
Could you give us kind of I don't mean to catch you unawares here, but maybe a little bit of a preview of what's coming down the pike? I know the last couple of meetings have been relatively short, and another short one again tonight, but I believe we've got a number of issues that are going to be coming. So could you kind of give us a little bit of a preview?
Yeah, we have a number of subdivisions that are in the process of conducting their neighborhood meetings right now, and so I anticipate that those we'll start to see applications here in the next couple weeks. At our next meeting later this month, we will have the design review for the new 6 and Jackson Urban Renewal Agency project. So that'll be the main agenda item at that meeting. We'll be going through the design review for that project.
Right. That'll.
Okay, Rob?
Yes, Victoria, go ahead.
Okay, two things. I think the 6 and Jackson, that's URA, Urban Renewal Agency. And I think their public hearing on that is, the 25th or something, whatever that Thursday is, if anyone's interested. But what I really wanted to say was I watched the city council on TV, and Rob did a really nice job of giving an annual report for planning and zoning and pointed out some of the things we've been
Good
doing.
job.
So thank you, Rob.
I had a lot of moral support from Mike. He put together a great presentation. So thank you, Victoria. Appreciate that. Let's see. And then, Mike, you were saying after that, we do have a number of subdivision and I suppose any rezones, or is it mostly plats?
Yep. There'll be at least a couple annexations that will include zoning designations and comp plan designations, and then yeah, I mean it's slated that we're gonna have a really busy year as far as just subdivisions and rezones and development, and then we'll also be reviewing the if you recall the behind Patty's Kitchen, the Gateway on 6 project. They're just wrapping up the final plat and the final PUD, so that'll likely be in review here in the next couple weeks as well. So really just ramping up for a lot of development here and activity in the commission. So the quiet times are over, so to speak, got a break over the last year. But I think it's going to hit us pretty hard as far as new development here in the next year.
That's great news, and I guess all of us are forewarned. The era of short meetings is soon to be over. Okay. Anything else that anybody has? Just an announcement that the next meeting for the 24th of March, and for a lot of us that have now had our second COVID shot, that'll be 2 weeks out. So I certainly am hoping to be in chambers for our next meeting. So hopefully we'll kind of start getting back to a little bit normal. And I sure, Nels, Mike, and Scott appreciate that you've made the effort to come in. So we'll look forward to seeing all of you. So any other issues anybody like to bring up? Okay, well, with that, we'll declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.